How can I be substantial if I do not cast a shadow? I must have a dark side also if I am to be whole. Carl Jung. The shadow is a moral concept that challenges the whole moral personality, for no one can become conscious and aware of the shadow without a lot of moral effort. This is Lori, your positivity princess. I'm here spreading love and positivity every day and in every way. Today we're talking about a really important topic of the shadow self. To be conscious and aware of the shadow involves recognizing the dark aspects of the personality, and to be conscious and aware of it involves recognizing the dark aspects of the personality are present, real, and important. The shadow is part of us that all of us have that we do tend to not want to identify with. This is why we end up repressing it. It is necessary that we do not repress it or ignore the shadow part of us, as it serves us in our lives. It is important to help us to be more complete individuals. So what is the shadow self? Carl Jung coined this term during the time that he was studying the collective consciousness and synchronicity. Here's the definition. It is the unconscious, dark or elusive side of us. That is why Jung called it the shadow. We all have an ego. The ego is part of the mind that wants to protect us and keep us alive. Our ego either does not want to acknowledge the shadow or it wants us to ignore it. This causes chaos in people's lives. Keep in mind that people are capable of acts of evil and they're capable of acts of good. And when we act out, either we are acting out of a natural or instinctive response. This is why it's important to identify with that dark side of ourselves. It will manifest in our lives whether we pay attention to it or not. It's there. This is why we should consciously do this work so that we can maintain control. Here's an example. When you have children and they misbehave, often the shadow self will take over when we are upset or disciplining. Carl Jung points out how difficult it is to take the shadow and integrate it into ourselves in a meaningful way, but it is necessary. Jordan Peterson said in an interview that we are inevitably always becoming a monster in life. We have to do this in a functional way. A great example that Jordan Peterson gave is dealing with the death of a loved one. You can do one of two things. You can either fall into the depths of mourning and be incapable of doing all the actions that are required of you in that moment, or you can temporarily accept the death and push through to complete all the actions and decisions that are required of you in that moment. As he puts it, you are a monster in either case. Unfortunately, in this first circumstance, you are allowing the shadow to control your response in the form of an intense emotional reaction, rendering you unable to complete your obligations. In the second circumstance, you are pushing through in a way that may look unemotional and heartless. Staying strong and capable during difficult circumstances is the functional thing to do and the desirable thing to do as well. Carl Jung was interested in World War II. He spent time trying to understand the behavior of Nazi soldiers. Most were living normal lives before the war. After the war, the Nazi guards were tried in the Nuremberg trials. Many of them committed suicide before they could even make it to court. They couldn't live with the shadow self, the side of them that they became aware of, the part of them that was capable of war crimes, etc. When we all have this shadow self inside us, we can learn more about the shadow self, and when we do, our lives will change dramatically and drastically. After a little more research, I came across this website blog called pathos.com. I've put a link in the description below. This is what I found. The blog discusses what the shadow self is not. Some people state that shadow work is about getting in touch with our dark side, which sounds like we're trying to turn into a Sith Lord, like Darth Vader, or confront your inner mass murderer or something. This is how the writer puts it. That is not what it is. Also, shadow work is not like an exorcism or mystical process of trying to turn yourself into a being of pure love, positivity, and light. If anything, that would be a form of spiritual bypassing, whereby one avoids doing any actual shadow work altogether. This process will allow you to stop burying negative emotions and thoughts or treating them as things to be avoided. This was part 1 of shadow work. Now you know what the shadow is. Part 2 will tell you how to identify that side of you that is the shadow self. Part 2 will also look at who can benefit from shadow work. I will provide strategies and practices to help you get to a much better idea of the forces inside you that you may or may not be aware of right now. Okay, positive peeps, do me a favor. Have yourself and your shadow self each hit that like button. Hit the subscribe and attract a whole buttload of good karma. And then hit that bell notification to attract positive energy and love. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all so much. Have a lovely day and be positive.